Hey, it's Christmas time. You know what that means. Time for another wacky Christmas special video. Unlike last year, I wanted to actually make a special holiday-themed tank, similar to the one that I did for Halloween this year. For the tank, I'll be using the M4A3 from the last video as a base. The basic concept is to have the tank painted and dressed up festively, and pulling a sleigh full of gifts. The sleigh would also act as a battery tray housing for lights. Now that you know what the expectation was, I'll show you how it turned out. The tank turned out great, or at least it did to me. I was able to do nearly everything I planned on for this half of the project. Along the sides are several wooden boards. Technically this is more of an aesthetic choice, but it was a real-life modification, primarily seen in the Pacific Theater. I'll explain why it was done in another video. It's not a very festive topic. The wooden boards are made out of cut strips of balsa wood, and were each painted and textured. Since the original tank had no headlights or brush guards, I made these custom ones out of a bit of metal and some shiny beads, rhinestone things. I know they aren't historically accurate, but personally I really like how they look. The paint job is a very simple, thin, dry brush of white, meant to emulate a simple snow camo. There's also a few grime streaks here and there too. The wreath and tree are both slightly modified, prefabricated decorations that I painted and added onto. Now I have a full bag of wreaths and a full bag of trees that I don't really know what to do with. In addition to the white camo scheme, I added several piles of snow in a few places. This was done with spackling compound and was given a thick layer of white paint after it dried. Lastly, I built and painted the hitch segment to pull the sleigh with. This was made using some extra parts and sprue pieces. And that brings us to the sleigh. This is kinda where the expectations of quality fall apart. Since I wanted to have Christmas lights attached to the tank, I needed somewhere to store the massive battery box. Unfortunately, this meant the sleigh had to be ungodly large. Its construction mostly consists of cardstock and balsa wood, so for its size, it's incredibly light. The bag is a single large piece of fabric that was painted brown to look like a bag full of gifts. The hitch and runners along the bottom are made of bits of sprue, and the main body of the sleigh was painted much the same way as the tank. Personally, I think I could have done better with this idea. While the tank turned out pretty good, the sleigh just didn't quite end up how I wanted. For one, it's way too big. They are quite large in real life, and I imagine that Santa probably has a pretty large sleigh considering how many deliveries he makes. But compared to the tank, yeah, it seems a little oversized. And because of how big it is, it made it really difficult to keep it looking like it's on the same scale as the tank. The other problem was the lights. These are very thin wire lights, which was about as small as I could find. The strand was about 17 feet long, which was much more than I needed, so my solution was to coil it up. This would make it shorter, as well as make it sort of resemble coils of barbed wire, which is cool. I wasn't quite prepared for how annoying it would be to work with, though. So for the most part, I've given up on the sleigh. It just didn't end up how I planned it, but that's okay. Let me know if you'd like to see the sleigh completed, and I'll work with what I've got, with the results posted to my Instagram. Anyway, that's about all I have for today's video. Hopefully you've enjoyed, and I'll see you again in the new year. Merry Christmas.